I think a lot of people forget that as you add more and more reps, you also add more and more base salary. So your sales to earnings ratios become more and more challenging. So having 12 reps at 40% attainment is much cost worse for you than 6 reps at 80% attainment, for example. And so my focus has really been on having the leanest and most appropriately segmented team possible. Naturally, the earlier stage you are as a business, you're going to have and set more achievable, quote unquote, achievable quotas related to on-target earnings. In terms of sales efficiency, I'm constantly looking at sales to earning ratios, win rates, ICP versus non-ICP, and market segment-based win rates, and time to close. That's regardless of stage for me personally. It's just how advanced does your reporting get as you evolve from C to A to B to C, so on and so forth. We've been having a lot of success in what I would call warm outbound. Really what that means is people who are aware of QuotaPath but did not come to the site in order to book a demo. What that does is I can actually motivate the team to go generate ICP versus non-ICP pipeline. I can pay higher commission rates for ICP closed won deals because they tend to have higher gross revenue retention. And so basically it's a leading indicator of future renewal. So focusing my energy there has proven, or our energy there as a business has proven quite fruitful for us as well. What I always think about with comp plan design is have a base model of a comp plan. So maybe for a new business rep, you have a couple of different commission rates they earn based on attainment, right? From a cost protection lever for the business. Sub 50% attainment, they earn one rate. 50 to 100% attainment, they earn another rate. 100% plus, you accelerate their rate, right? If they go above quota, you want to motivate them. And then you pick 2 other things that make that a new business rep can do that signal that they're bringing on customers that are great for your business. The one that tends to happen when RevOps teams are coming and starting is really around reporting. Board reporting, summarizing how the business is doing, getting consistent reporting rhythms, and taking that data and deciding what to do next. And so that's a really good place for a RevOps team to start. So AI is really good for like high volumes of data categorization and classification. So when you're thinking about things like defining loss reasons or churn reasons, feed a bunch of your data into an AI tool in terms of notes from emails sent or call recordings or what have you, and have AI classify and compartmentalize your data in a way that's really easy to understand has proven quite fruitful for us as well. Truthfully, a salesperson in today's day and age, the differentiator on a salesperson is somebody who the buyer likes, right? Somebody who the buyer likes and who the buyer feels confident is actually asking and answering the right questions. And so a lot of my thinking in building a sales team is finding people who are curious about asking the right questions about the buyer and curious about making sure that the buyer feels confident in the solution moving forward. We tend to operate in a couple week cycle with outbound. Hey, the customer's not responding within the first 2 or 3 weeks. Like you can slowly drip them out over time with like feature releases and new things, but you don't want to come across as like super pestering, honestly. And we often circle back to those. So like, you'll have a customer who you prospect once every 6 months, you kind of rotate through that cycle again and give more information to. We do a lot of paired call coachings, more senior to more junior team member call coachings. I call coach. Call coaching is a very big part of our culture, as is paired demos. And so when a new seller comes on, they will shadow more senior sellers. They'll build a little bit of their own rhythm. They will then do mock demos themselves internally, will grade and perform and give feedback from there. But then product knowledge is honestly one of the big things I spend a lot of time on in the first month or two, making sure they understand fundamentally how the product works.
So Ryan, so what are you up to? What are you building right now?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Saad. My name is Ryan Milligan. I'm the Vice President of Revenue Operations and Sales at QuotaPath. QuotaPath automates the process of calculating and paying commissions, so making it really easy to build your compensation plan, pull in the associated records, calculate those commissions, give your reps visibility into their earnings in real time so they can forecast future earnings and then pay the team. In terms of what we're focused on right now, we just released a pretty major release for us in terms of making the product even more adaptable for our customers and scaling alongside them. That's things like a native app in Salesforce, the ability to manage commission approvals on multiple levels of those approvals, and more like better user provisioning and team management overall. So we did a big announcement earlier this week on the 25th. So it's been a pretty fun week so far.
So Ryan, tell us about your experience. So when did you join the company, and what play that you bring in, what worked for you, and just go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined QuotaPath in the fall of 2021. So I'm coming up on 3 years. My background is primarily analytics and ops based. And so when I first arrived, was really focused on building kind of an analytical infrastructure for the business. So a data warehouse to pull more data into, better, more consistent reporting, and just having a tech stack where we could build really simple and smooth processes for our go-to-market teams. So I've been in a RevOps capacity the entire time that I've been here. And then as growth stage startups go, you get handed interesting opportunities. And so I led our account management team for about 9 months last year. And then I took over leadership of our sales team in Q4 of last year as well. So really the thing that really interested me about QuotaPath is the problem we're solving. Commissions is a very, it's a very cross-functional problem where you have to motivate the individual selling rep, the sales leader. You have to meet the ops leader where they are in terms of building and deploying compensation plans, and then make it easy for finance to actually do the calculation. So it's a fun challenge trying to make all those different people happy simultaneously.
Okay, that's awesome. So for the audience, so how do you set realistic targets for your sales teams, and what are the key components of actually achieving those targets? So just talk about the basic, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we think about our business and targets for the team is you think about an activity-based pipeline and what is reasonable based on demand. So we run both a top-down and bottoms-up model and kind of tend to end out in the middle. I think the mistakes that we saw in like the zero interest rate market was the assumption that you would just keep hiring more and more reps and assume 80% quota attainment and just assume that there was just endless pipeline. And so the first thing that I start with is just our pipeline. Like, how much pipeline do we actually have? Where is that coming from? What is the shape of that pipeline? And how do you expect that over the next 4 to 8 quarters? And this is more of a kind of like that bottoms up approach. So how much pipeline do you have? What is quota capacity in the field? What can your win rates, what have they been historically, and what can they reasonably be if you make improvements? And how do you back into like a true starting with pipeline all the way through closed won new business revenue? And then the top down model is much more, where do you want to end the year from an ARR perspective, this year or next year? And how do you back into, okay, what is the closed won revenue you would need from a new business perspective, the expansion revenue, and then your downgrading churn, and how do you mathematically put yourself there? And the question is, if you need to end at a certain number, let's say you need to end at 20 million in ARR next year, how do you then figure out how much pipeline you're going to need, how much headcount you're going to need in operating? I'm personally a very big believer in using pipeline as a trigger or driver of financial planning, specifically because you aren't going to be able to create a ton of pipeline from thin air. And I think a lot of these financial plans forget, hey, you can't just hire a bunch of reps and expect them to create pipeline at the same volume you have thus far.
And you pretty much took over sales during this time of this economic recession, right? And you've alluded to the fact, you can't expect all of the reps to hit 80% and you keep on increasing the reps. So what's working for you? So how are you thinking about quotas and all of the sales numbers in this economic condition?
Yeah, so my piece of advice is just run the leanest team you possibly can. So we're a 6-person sales team. We have been really focused on efficiency and quota attainment. I think a lot of people forget that as you add more and more reps, you also add more and more base salary. So your sales to earnings ratios become more and more challenging. So having 12 reps at 40% attainment is much cost worse for you than 6 reps at 80% attainment, for example. And so my focus has really been on having the leanest and most appropriately segmented team possible. So we have 3 team members who work our small business opportunities. They are only working 0 to 10 user opportunities for us. And then we have 3 reps who are working more in the mid-market as you get to, 20, 50, 100, several hundred reps. And so those are very discrete skill sets for us. And so my approach was segment the team, make sure it's the right size for the demand, and make sure that they have a true path to actually hitting quota. And we're wrapping up the quarter today, but for quarters before this, Q4 and Q1, the team was above 100% attainment. And so in a blended nature. And so really it's focused on keeping a lean team that has a true path to quota that motivates them and keeps them engaged.
Okay, and how well are you working with the marketing team? Is marketing inbound helping you out in this scenario, or is it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, our marketing team is incredible, and a high portion of our pipeline is inbound and marketing generated for a couple of reasons. One, we're very community embedded, and so we work really closely with Pavilion, RevOps Co-op, RevGenius, Modern Sales Pros, a bunch of different communities to answer questions about compensation plans and compensation plan design. And so that drives a lot of kind of what I would call like dark funnel traffic, as marketing always calls it, where people learn about us through those communities, paired with more traditional methods like paid search and SEO and what have you. And we offer value in those communities as well. So I offer a free compensation plan consult as a very big top of funnel demand gen tool for us to advise people on the best compensation plans to then turn that into an opportunity down the line to automate their processes.
Okay, awesome. So tell us about the matrices that you're looking at in terms of how your sales team is performing. What key matrices do you look at, and how those change over the period of time? So there's a seed, and there's Series A, and there's Series B. So how those KPI evolve?
Yeah, so the first place you start as you evolve the business from a quota setting and compensation plan design is in your quota to OTE ratio. Naturally, the earlier stage you are as a business, you're going to have and set more achievable, quote unquote, achievable quotas related to on-target earnings. So the way that we always think about this is, sub 5 million in annual recurring revenue, a lot of businesses are operating at a 3x or 3.5x quota to OTE ratio, which is that if your on-target earnings per rep is 100K, maybe their annual quota is between 300K and 350. As they get more and more support from the org, more brand recognition in the market, ARR is growing, more product market fit, you then are moving them to 4.5, 5x quota to OTE ratio, effectively raising the quota while keeping OTE where it is. And the thought is it's easier for them to close deals because they have more support and more market recognition. So from a compensation plan design perspective, that's one of the first places we tend to start. In terms of sales efficiency, I'm constantly looking at sales to earning ratios, win rates, ICP versus non-ICP, and market segment based win rates, and time to close. That's regardless of stage for me personally. It's just how advanced does your reporting get as you evolve from C to A to B to C, so on and so forth.
Okay. In terms of channels, which one are your favorite one right now?
Channels in terms of pipeline generation?
Yeah.
We've been having a lot of success in what I would call warm outbound. Really what that means is people who are aware of QuotaPath but did not come to the site in order to book a demo. Those are examples of those would be people who were formerly admins of QuotaPath at another company and have since moved companies, so have a high level of familiarity with the product and the business but have not yet come back to solve the problem. People who signed up for trials but never converted into an opportunity, former close lost ops from 6 to 12 months ago. Really, we're trying to make sure we're constantly retapping that well, and we're doing that with a couple tools. We've been big Clay and Smart Lead users for a long time, so building custom segmented lists using Clay and then putting them into kind of Smart Lead, hyper targeted Smart Lead campaigns to rotate through and send relevant email to them has been something we've been working on for a long time, of course.
Yeah, in terms of reaching out, is it LinkedIn? Is it cold call? Is it emails? Or what's the mix that you see is working at the moment?
We've been primarily a cold email based shop, especially when you can build ways to not affect core domain, right? So have secondary domains that you can email and volume off of. So not running into like domain risks, which is obviously super important to us. That plus more of the social selling motion on LinkedIn has proven quite fruitful. The challenge for cold calling that we've seen, and we've done it in fits and spurts, is really that the buyer commissions is like a problem that you either know or don't know that you have in moment, right? So if I'm cold calling you and you don't feel like your commissions problem, like you don't have a huge problem calculating and paying commissions, your team has okay visibility, there's like a moment in which you know that you have a problem that you need to go solve. And so we have been relying more heavily on cold email and LinkedIn, but pairing it with cold calling where appropriate as well.
Okay, and so obviously the ICP becomes super important. So how would you define that, and would you define the right timing and signal when this moment of realization happens? Okay, that the comp plan isn't working.
Yeah, so ICP has been a really fun journey for us. I've defined our ICP over time. We typically operate in what I would call the upper SMB, upper small business through the mid market. So that's companies with 5 to several hundred sales reps. Typically, CRM source is a very big value driver for us. So using HubSpot or Salesforce primarily as the CRM where the data is tracked, because remember, we're pulling in that data from those CRMs, then calculating the commissions in our product, and then passing that data back to CRM. And so HubSpot and Salesforce have been great partners in that way as well. And then we tend to operate in a broad variety of industries. There are a couple of industries that don't work super well for us, just in the nature of how they compensate team members. But really, it's that employee count, sales rep count paired with CRM has been like a really nice, clearly defined ICP for us. And so what that does is I can actually motivate the team to go generate ICP versus non-ICP pipeline. I can pay higher commission rates for ICP closed won deals because they tend to have higher gross revenue retention. And so basically it's a leading indicator of future renewal. So focusing my energy there has proven, or our energy there as a business has proven quite fruitful for us as well.
And how would you come about this? Because you have this definition, okay, the upper part of the SMB segment. You must have done some experimentation, and how do you figure that out? That this works better for you.
Is look at our entire customer base. So naturally, a large component of customers are non-ICP, right? You're not going to have an ICP that's just all your customers. And so what we did is we did some different cuts of segmentation with our customer base and asked a couple of key questions. What was delineating and differentiating in terms of win rate, in terms of NPS, and in terms of gross revenue retention? And basically running logistic regressions on your data to say, okay, of all these customers, and doing some random forest work using Python and just saying, okay, hey, what are the signals that tell us that this customer is the firmographic or demographic signals of the business that tell us, okay, this business has a higher NPS, has a higher win rate from a pipeline perspective, and has higher gross revenue retention. And so really, in the simplest case though, you have an eye on what your ICP could be. You just mark all your customers as ICP versus non-ICP by that rule and say, does my ICP versus non-ICP have a higher win rate, a higher gross revenue retention, higher expansion, and higher NPS? And if that's directionally different between ICP and non-ICP, then you have a pretty good place to start.
Okay. And in terms of, you talked about the motivation factor. So let's just talk about comp plan and motivation. How can you utilize it to drive that?
Yeah, so the truth is a compensation plan is your best tool to drive humans to do what is best for your business. I think a lot of people take a comp plan and say, oh, I have to pay my reps some sort of variable comp. I'm not sure exactly what to do. I want to protect the cost of the business. So they create these kind of Frankenstein style comp plans with all these different protections and boxes and different motivators, and all of a sudden the rep's confused. The truth is a comp plan is your best tool to motivate a human to do what's best for your business. So what I always think about with comp plan design is have a base model of a comp plan. So maybe for a new business rep, You have a couple of different commission rates they earn based on attainment, right? From a cost protection lever for the business. Sub 50% attainment, they earn one rate. 50 to 100% attainment, they earn another rate. 100% plus, you accelerate their rate, right? If they go above quota, you want to motivate them. And then you pick two other things that make that a new business rep can do that signal that they're bringing on customers that are great for your business. So let's say gross revenue retention is the biggest problem for your business. How can a new business rep help with gross revenue retention? Well, one, they can sign on longer term contracts, because the longer a customer's in an initial contract, the more time they have to find value and get set up properly before considering a renewal. So give them a couple extra points on 2-year or 3-year deals versus a 1-year deal or a monthly deal, for example. And then, ICP is likely going to be correlated with high gross revenue retention. So give them extra commission points for bringing on an ICP customer or a self-set demo or something like that. So at the end, you basically have this grid of rates that your rep knows that if she closes, if she's above 100% attainment and brings on a 2-year ICP customer, she can make a crazy amount of money on that deal because she's maxed out these different rate components and is motivated to go close more of those types of deals. So the truth is you run that through your line, you figure out what the metric is you're trying to drive for your business, and you make sure that everybody from marketing to BDRs to AEs to AMs, all the way to solutions engineers, all the way through your process, are all motivated to do activities that drive improvement in the metric you care about.
Okay, that's awesome. So you've talked about poor pipeline hygiene, and so how do you fix that?
So I tend to operate in two ways of thinking on poor pipeline hygiene, and the question is, why is the pipeline hygiene so poor? One, we'll call the shameless plug on the quota path side, is people will keep their hygiene in better shape if they can see how much their pipeline leads to potential commissions for themselves. So we naturally see pipeline hygiene improvements for our customers who join us because a rep can see in the product, can actually forecast how much money they're going to make in commissions on deals in their pipeline. And so if they have better pipeline hygiene, they can actually accurately forecast how much they're going to make in commissions, which proves quite helpful. And then the second piece is, I tend to take more of a public approach with pipeline hygiene. And I tell the team why I find pipeline hygiene to be really important. I have to roll up this information and report to a board or model out how much revenue I expect this team to close. So I have a dirty ops report. It's on our screen in our office. I look at it every day. Every day I ping the team, hey, these ops, and they're dirty for a number of reasons. Close date in the past, next steps not updated in the past week, BANT hasn't been changed in 2 weeks or updated in 2 weeks, like the list of reasons you would think about. And that just sits publicly and we review it as a team, and that proves also to be quite helpful in process.
Okay, that's awesome. And you've built this RevOps team from scratch, right? So just tell us about the process and a guide for people who are just doing it for now.
So from a revenue operations perspective, when you're getting started, I think the first thing to ask yourself is, what are the major problems cross-functionally you think you can solve for the business? The one that tends to happen when RevOps teams are coming and starting is really around reporting. Board reporting, summarizing how the business is doing, getting consistent reporting rhythms, and taking that data and deciding what to do next. And so that's a really good place for a RevOps team to start. There are so many tools in which you can spin up a data warehouse really easily, connect that to a BI tool. We use a tool called Mozart Data that we love, where you can kind of set up that whole system for yourself and operate. So there's so many of those types of tools in the market. And so being able to be the arbiter of measurement of the business is a really good place to start from a revenue operations perspective. And then from there, you want to look at where is the business performing most poorly versus expectation from a financial plan. Is it gross revenue retention? Is it win rate? Is it ASP? Is it what have you? And then figure out a way to, from there, dictate what are the things you're going to do to tackle that problem, and how can you work operationally with a cross-functional team to solve that. And so that's where RevOps gets a lot of value really early on, is identifying where there's breakage in your funnel and how you're going to solve that problem, whether with a tool or with a new process or a new system or something like that.
And in this RevOps, obviously AI is on the hype right now. So how come people incorporate are people incorporating AI into this, and what are the best ways of doing it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different like really amazing ways, right? You write a bunch of SQL or Salesforce flows or other ways to solve problems, writing code in one way or another in a RevOps capacity, and so from there you can absolutely use AI, and we do very actively to like check that type of like code or writing that you have. The second is we help a lot with outbound campaign, messaging and targeting. And so using AI from like your copywriting and then editing perspective has proven quite fruitful. And then I would say the third is AI is really good for like high volumes of data categorization and classification. So when you're thinking about things like defining loss reasons or churn reasons, feed a bunch of your data into an AI tool in terms of notes from emails sent or call recordings or what have you, and have AI classify and compartmentalize your data in a way that's really easy to understand has proven quite fruitful for us as well.
Okay. Now let's just come towards the human side of this building a sales process. So how do you identify that, okay, this sales guy will do the right job for you and this will not? What is your litmus test for that?
So curiosity is a massive thing for me. I care more about curiosity and intellectual curiosity than pretty much anything. Somebody who's really interested in learning the buyer's pain, asking the right questions, understanding how they're working. You need somebody to be genuinely kind of like empathetic and curious in order to be successful in a sales role. All the classic sales stuff about like hunger and drive and drive to win and competitiveness, I actually care a lot less about. Truthfully, a salesperson in today's day and age, the differentiator on a salesperson is somebody who the buyer likes, right? Somebody who the buyer likes and who the buyer feels confident is actually asking and answering the right questions. Excuse me. And so a lot of my thinking in building a sales team is finding people who are curious about asking the right questions about the buyer and curious about making sure that the buyer feels confident in the solution moving forward. There's so much parity in the market in sales tech today that you have to have people who are deeply empathetic and understanding the buyer problem to differentiate your product in the market versus the slew of others a buyer could pick.
Okay. And I would assume there's a lot of personalization would actually play a huge role over there. So any favorite tool over there, or do you believe, okay, this is still a very manual process and it has to be done for each and every person?
Yeah, I think personalization is one of those things that we've over-rotated on. I care much less about personalization, what you know about me. I care much more about personalization, what you know about the problem that I'm facing. So when someone sends me an email that's like, clearly they did a lot of research on me. Hey, Ryan, I saw you played rugby at Dartmouth, and I saw you, we're in this club and whatever. Frankly, that doesn't mean a lot to me. And I know that some people like those, but that doesn't like drive me to want to buy that tool much more. Sure, you did your research and look through my LinkedIn and what have you, but I care much more that you don't even have to say my name if you know the problem that I'm facing. Hey, it probably takes you a really long time to calculate and pay commissions, and you're probably finding yourself dealing with all these discrepancies at the end of the month, and your reps are flagging deals after they've been paid, and they're losing confidence in your ability to properly pay them, which is decreasing overall confidence in your RevOps role more broadly. Those are the types of things that like I have felt in past roles, which drove me to come work at QuotaPath. And those are more interesting personalizations to me than, hey, Ryan, you live in Philly, you went to Dartmouth, you played rugby, like that stuff. It's publicly available information, so it doesn't feel super differentiated to me at this point.
So ever done an A/B on this? So for A/B test on this, okay, the personalization versus a very pain point focused messaging, which one works better? So
yeah, I tend to like pain point focused messaging, honestly, and our customers do. It's like, hey, this is a problem that I know you're facing. I've talked to other people who are facing the same problem. I have to imagine, hey, you just brought on 5 new BDRs. You have to build and deploy comp plans for them, throw them in your Excel sheet, get them to understand your comp process, give them the Excel calculator that you use. Like there's a lot of just like time wasted in that process. And their understanding and opinion of the business is going to be formed by how good you are at paying commissions, right? The companies that really, really mess up the commissions process are the ones that lose their reps when reps have a lot more mobility.
Okay. And what's the sort of like frequency when for tapping some prospect, and when do you say, okay, let's just give up on this?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Well, like the frequency of touch points when you surround a certain prospect. Okay, what's your ideal sort of like take on this?
We tend to operate in a couple week cycle with outbound. Hey, you know, the customer's not responding within the first 2 or 3 weeks. Like you can slowly drip them out over time with like feature releases and new things, but you don't want to come across as like super pestering, honestly. And we often circle back to those. So like, you know, you'll have a customer who you prospect once every 6 months. You kind of rotate through that cycle again and give more information to. You want to stay top of mind without being pestering and providing value. So we'll provide things like comp plan consultations and compensation design calculators and other things to know that are actually fruitful and valuable for them. Because it's the same thing we were talking about before. If you aren't feeling the problem right now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to feel the problem in the future, right? Maybe you have your commissions process in really good shape and then you triple your sales team. And then all of a sudden you have to navigate all these different types of comp plans and models and things are breaking, or maybe you pay a rep wrong and that rep leaves the company because they're frustrated that you've been paying commissions incorrectly for a long time, for a moment. And so those are these kind of like point in time moments. And we want to be broadly top of mind when those moments do end up happening.
Okay, so Ryan, you brought in the right sales guys, and how do you train and coach them? How do you sort of like mentor those guys to start performing?
Yeah, I think for our team, a lot of our focus has really been on pairing, and pair processing is a really big thing for our sales team. And so we do a lot of paired call coachings, more senior to more junior team member call coachings. I call coach. Call coaching is a very big part of our culture, as is pair demos. And so when a new seller comes on, they will shadow more senior sellers. They'll build a little bit of their own rhythm. They will then do mock demos themselves internally, will grade and perform and give feedback from there. But then product knowledge is honestly one of the big things I spend a lot of time on in the first month or two, making sure they understand fundamentally how the product works so that when they run into potential tricky questions or headwinds or customer concerns, they at least have enough contextual knowledge to be able to navigate that effectively in conversation.
Okay, so obviously you guys are the king of the comp plan, and you understand that thing really, really well. But so there are numbers, there's very hard numbers, but what are the other the qualitative characteristics that you want to see, and maybe that performance of a sales guy is dependent on those also.
Some of the qualitative stuff in a seller that I really care about. We talked a little bit about empathy, curiosity, question asking. That's a very big one for me. I think the other one is somebody who is actively seeking to lift the team. My senior sellers are constantly training other people on the team, running we do a group training with the team once a week. And so they're constantly lifting the team to bring them all together about, hey, this is a new prospecting method that's working really well. Here's a way I ran a POC that worked effectively. Here's a close the file, op revive email. You want a team that, I don't like lone wolves. I want a team that's leaning in and feeding off each other to drive great outcomes, because it's definitely a rising tides culture here, where if one team member does well, the whole culture tends to do well additionally.
Okay, and in terms of performance reviews, do you have a cadence for it, and what's your sort of like way around it?
Yeah, so I tend to do, I have weekly one-on-ones, but then I carve out quarterly like deeper dives on performance. So I'll give live off-the-cuff feedback to the team. Hey, if we get out for call that I'm on, I'll just say, hey, let's grab 5 minutes after to talk through it and give feedback. I also do call coachings in week, or I do monthly call coachings, then another team member does monthly as well. So they get 2 call coachings a month. And then we get into like more quarterly deeper dives on performance as well.
So what is your advice? So somebody is starting this process. So they bring in the sales guys. Now they need to equip them with all the tools. Which minimum tech stack should they have for them to really start performing?
Yeah, so if you think about the things you need to do in a tech stack, you need to book demos, you need to record conversations, you need to send emails and price and send contracts. So tools that solve those are kind of like your must-haves. We advocate for QuotaPath to be a pretty early purchase, because at the end of the day, you're trying to motivate a team of people that are very money motivated. And so giving transparency to sellers in how much they're earning in commissions and being able to forecast in real time proves quite fruitful. So paired with CRM setup, we often pair with QuotaPath setup, and we've had a lot of buyers buy both at the same time, like buy HubSpot and then link QuotaPath right to it immediately. So they're building a sales culture of people who can see not only their deals in the pipeline, but how much money they're going to earn in commissions, and be super motivated in real time by forecasting future earnings on deals they've yet to close.
Okay, that's awesome. So I think I pretty much covered everything. So do you have any pointers that you wanted to add, and maybe I've missed those?
I would just say, as your audience thinks about compensation plan design, I mean, I'm always happy to chat through comp plan design. I offer free 30-minute compensation plan consultation, so always happy to do that. But really think about using a compensation plan as a tool to motivate the best actions from your team, right? Don't see it as this, I have to have a comp plan. Rather, think about a comp plan as what's the base for what a team member does really well, and what separates a good from great performer, and how do I identify that separation and then pay the great performer more than the good performer? Maybe they're signing on longer term contracts, maybe they're doing a bunch more outbound pipeline generation, maybe they're renewing contracts early, who knows? That's for you and your business to decide. But understand what those two drivers are of success from that AE, BDR, AM, SC, what have you, and build those as a part of a comp plan. And then take a financial metric that you care about deeply of your business, like net revenue retention, win rate, ASP, and flow that down into the comp plans in ways that each person can do something that improves that metric, would be my big piece of advice.
Okay, and where can people find you?
I'm available on LinkedIn, so I'm pretty active there. So please connect. Happy to have more conversations. And then come check out QuotaPath. Always, pricing is available on our website. We're pretty transparent about all things in the market. Big differentiator for us. We have a 14-day free trial. So sign up and check us out. And if you're spending a Friday calculating and paying commissions, there is a better way, I promise. We'd love to show you.
Okay, that's awesome. If somebody has to learn more on this topic, which books would you recommend, or any other tool?
So I tend to be more podcast focused. Honestly, is like where I tend to do a lot of my learning. I've been pretty impressed by Great in Sales, which is Justin Ashby's and Alicia's podcast I listen to a fair bit. And then Top Line is a podcast I listen to a fair bit. It's Pavilion's podcast with Sam Jacobs and AJ Bruno and Saman. Those are like my two go-tos from a learning perspective these days.
So Ryan, thanks a lot. I truly loved our conversation. So
thanks, Saad. Have a great day. Okay.
Okay. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.